Hey, this is Jim Horn, and let's talk a little bit about photography. Uh, Let me set the scene for you, or the stage. For many years now, my wife and I have had two homes. One home happens to be in Arizona, that is the winter home, and the other home happens to be in Michigan, or Traverse City, Michigan. So we decided that we needed to really consolidate and downsize. It was getting that time in our lives where we really needed to do that. And so we decided actually we're going to downsize in Michigan. So we had to sell the Arizona home. And what I immediately realized I've been in photography now for almost 45 years, and we've had the duplicate homes probably for 26 or 27 years. How much duplicate photography equipment you wind up with, and the emotional attachment that you have to it. You really, you don't want to get rid of any of it. At least this is what I found, until you really obligated to move a lot of it out so you don't have more photography equipment than you'll ever need. And so here's what I did. I immediately went into the room where I had all my lenses and my cameras and so forth and so on. And I began to evaluate as to, am I really going to use this again? For example, I've got a big video camera, or maybe two video cameras, maybe one video camera that's in the home in Arizona and one video camera that's in the home in Michigan. And you begin to realize that cameras are really downsizing. Everything my DJ Osmo 3 can probably do just about anything that any of the larger cameras have. So you've got this emotional attachment to the equipment, and you really don't want to get rid of it. But then you say to yourself, well, wait a second, I've got to pack this stuff in a box, and then I've got to send it across the country. I've got to bring it into the new location, and I've already got other equipment or duplicate equipment from the second home. And it was extremely difficult. So how did I decide what to keep and what not to keep? Well, I had a mental inventory of what was in the home in Michigan. And consequently, the mental inventory could be a little bit flawed, but I did have a mental inventory of what I had and didn't have. And so I said to myself, you're going to have to just forget about the emotional attachment to this equipment. You're going to have to take it and put it in a box and maybe sell it on eBay, or maybe sell it on, one of the sites like MPB or KEH or someplace like that, which is exactly what I did. I went to those sites and I said, well, I thought, I'd test it out and see how much can I get for this particular piece of equipment. If it was worthwhile, then I would sell that particular piece of equipment to either KEH or MPB, or if it really wasn't worthwhile, I might give it away to Goodwill. However, most of the equipment I found did go to one of the companies that purchased used equipment, and that worked out really well. But you really had to make a hard decision as to, do I keep this? I've got a 300 millimeter lens here. Am I ever going to use that again? Am I going to go out and do bird photography again? No, I don't think so. That was my past history, bird photography. And I've got a lot of Leica equipment. I decided to keep most of that primarily because like equipment always tends to hold its value, although suspiciously, I'm not sure how much I'm going to use some of that like equipment. I've got to really think about that. I'm just a little bit unsure. And the like equipment's got more sentimental value to me than most of the equipment, and here's why. I always wanted Leica cameras. Really never could afford them till I got a lot older. And now that I've got them, I really don't want to give them away. So I'm hanging on to that, those pieces of equipment. And the other stuff, I found that what you've really got to do is you've got to become impassioned with the equipment, realizing you're going to take a hit as far as, I'm sure I paid $300 for this, and I'm probably going to sell it for $150 or maybe even, some other amount of money. And consequently, that was difficult. But you put it in a box, and you either send it back or you find out how much it's worth, and then you get rid of it. For example, I did a lot of negative scanning in Arizona, and I also wanted to scan here in Michigan, but I thought, well, wait a minute, what do I need 2 scanning outfits? And I'm not talking about digital scanners. I'm talking about the scanners that come from Negative Supply. So I said to myself, although these are expensive, the holders and so forth, I really don't need 2 of them. And I just had to make a decision as to which one to get rid of, and I got rid of one of them. Actually sold it on eBay. So what did this whole process teach me? And I think that's becoming very interesting. I have now looked at the cameras that I have, and I have a better idea of now, and I've been, as I've said on past podcasts, I've been doing this photography thing now for 45 or 50 years. I really don't need a lot of equipment. A couple of cameras will suffice. And I'm sure I'm going to be whittling down the cameras that I have, or even further whittling them down and saying, because I've got some that are on what I call the hot sheet. I've got like 3 video cameras, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, how are you going to use 3 of these things? One's a large camcorder, one's the Sony FX30, and the other is the Blackmagic 6K Pro. So I think, am I going to be doing that much shooting that I now need 3 cameras? I don't think so. So we're going to have to be making some decisions on those pretty soon. And what I would suggest to anybody that is going through this process, you gotta get rid of the emotional attachment. The emotional attachment is what really causes you problems with this equipment. And we might have bought it for emotional reasons because we thought, we're going to go out, we're going to be taking photographs like Cartier-Bresson or, Eisenstadt, or you name the photographer, Ansel Adams. And you know what? You just didn't use it. You didn't use that lens. You didn't use that camera. You didn't use it enough. So I've gotten rid of probably about 70%, maybe 80% of my lenses. And I would say probably about 30 or 40% of my cameras. So hard decisions, but in case you have to make that decision, you need to become impassioned. You need to take a look at everything and say, hey, do I really need this camera, this lens? And the answer is probably not. You probably haven't used it in a long time, so you really ought to do something with it. Anyway, those are some thoughts on downsizing and equipment. I'm sure I'm going to get along as a photographer just fine in the coming years. You guys take care and have a great, great photography day.